At 5:47 on a Monday morning, my son was counting the bread delivery while rain soaked through the sleeve of his coat. He showed me a replacement online and asked whether he was allowed to spend $42. I almost laughed because the question seemed so small. By closing time, I was staring at an empty payroll search with his name typed correctly in the box. 12 people depended on our diner, and one missing employee record was about to put every one of us at risk. How had I worked beside him for years without asking where his pay went? I noticed Noah's coat before I noticed anything else that Monday morning. Rainwater had darkened both shoulders, and one cuff had begun to separate from the sleeve. He stood behind the counter with the coffee urn warming beside him, studying something on his phone. It was just before 6. Luis was in the kitchen checking refrigerator temperatures. Carl crossed behind Noah with his keys clipped to his belt, unlocked the office, and shut the door. The medium roast came 12 minutes early. Noah told me. Did you count it? Yes, they sent the right number. The change drawer was ready. The cups were stocked. The bakery order had already been checked. Noah turned his phone toward me. On the screen was a dark gray raincoat with an inside pocket. This one is $42 before tax. It looks good. Can I use work money for this? I thought he meant tip money. Of course. His thumb stayed against the edge of the phone. Dad says I don't have an account. He says the diner keeps my paycheck because I live upstairs. Before I could answer, the bread driver came through the front door. Noah checked the trays and immediately told him 2 rye loaves were missing. The driver found them in the truck. Breakfast rush started before I could ask another question. One server's car would not start, so I covered her tables. Noah verified the produce delivery, helped the dishwasher find the sanitizer strips, cleared a jammed receipt printer, reprinted 2 tickets, and matched each one to the correct takeout bag. When a new server wrote the wrong table number on a breakfast order, he caught it before Luis sent the plates out. He did not announce the mistake. He moved the ticket, pointed to the correct booth, and returned to counting coffee sleeves. At 9:15, I caught him near the drink station. What is your hourly rate? He doesn't say it by hour. Have you ever received a pay stub? Noah frowned. What is on it? I explained. He shook his head. Carl came out of the office holding a folder. Why isn't Sunday's register report on my desk? I was asking Noah about his pay, I said. Carl looked at me, then at Noah. We'll talk later. The diner closed at 3. Luis stayed to finish inventory. Noah went upstairs to change his wet shirt, and Carl left for the bank. I opened the payroll portal using my own login. I searched Noah's full name, then his first initial, then current and inactive workers. I checked W-2 records and direct deposits. Nothing appeared. The payroll representative asked for Noah's social security number and searched again. There has never been an employee record under that name or number, she said. I wrote the sentence on a receipt beside the keyboard. I wish I could say the empty payroll screen was the first warning I had ever seen. It was only the first one I could no longer explain away. Carl returned after 4. I met him beside the locked office door. Why has Noah never been on payroll? Carl set the bank bag against his hip. He has a place to live, utilities, meals. I handle his benefits. I drive him where he needs to go. That is not a paycheck. You put him on payroll wrong. He could lose benefits. Then some agency decides he needs a program or supervised housing. You want strangers moving him around because you needed a clean line on a tax form? He works more than some people we pay. He likes the diner. That does not make the work free. Family doesn't bill each other for every hour. He opens the front 5 days a week. And he has a home upstairs. Why does he think you're keeping his paycheck? Carl looked toward the ceiling. Toward Noah's studio. He doesn't need this confusion. Give him a few days off. You're taking him off the schedule because I asked about his pay? I'm giving everybody room to calm down. He has never been on the schedule. Carl picked up the bank bag. Noah has never gone without. Then why did he have to ask me for $42? His hand paused on the office knob. Then he went inside. The next morning began with 3 people doing the work Noah usually finished before 6. The coffee station was still dark. Luis left the kitchen twice for deliveries. And a server searched for small bills. "Where's Noah?" Tessa asked as she tied on her apron. Carl told him to take a few days off. Tessa looked toward the ceiling. "He sick?" "No. I was already pouring beans into the grinder Noah usually filled." By 7, the counter was running behind. The bakery driver waited while I searched for the delivery sheet. A customer at the register asked for change from a $100 bill. And none of us knew whether the front drawer had enough 20s. Luis came out with a produce invoice in one hand and a towel over his shoulder. "Who checks this when Noah isn't here?" I took it. "Apparently we do." He returned to the kitchen. Then came out again because the tomato count did not match the invoice. Each interruption left the grill unattended for a few seconds. And each one had been invisible when Noah handled it. Tessa found the sanitizer strips in the wrong cabinet. Then called upstairs to ask Noah where he kept the backup receipt paper. He answered from behind his closed door, giving exact directions without coming down. "He likes being useful," Tessa said when she returned. "That doesn't mean he should work for free." Her hands stopped over a stack of menus. "Honey, I didn't say that. I'm saying the room upstairs counts for something. Meals count. Rides count. Carl has looked after him a long time." The bell over the door rang before I could ask who had decided what counted. That night, Carl and I argued in our kitchen while rain tapped against the windows. "You're talking like this started yesterday," he said. "I'm talking about what is happening now. What is happening now is you're tearing apart the one place where Noah has always done well." Carl reminded me what the years after Elena died had been like. Noah was 10. His school changed. Relatives offered help and stopped showing up. One program told Carl not to expect steady employment. Another suggested supervised housing before asking Noah what he wanted. Carl kept breakfast at the same time, drove Noah to appointments, fought with teachers, and learned which routines made the day manageable. I had watched him sit through school meetings where professionals spoke about Noah as if he were not in the room. Carl would move his chair closer to his son and make them start again. That history was real. It was also the shield Carl raised whenever I asked who had been allowed to make decisions after Noah became an adult. Noah had begun at the diner with small jobs. Folding boxes, stocking napkins, maybe 8 or 10 hours a week. He liked knowing where things belonged. Then someone asked him to receive a delivery. Someone else showed him the opening list. A server quit, and Noah filled the gap. The hours grew so slowly that no one named the day helping became a job. "You don't get to erase everything I did because you found a blank screen," Carl said. "I'm not erasing it." "That's exactly what you're doing." The next morning, I knocked on Noah's studio door. "I need to tell you what the payroll company said." He opened it only a few inches. "There has never been an employee record under your name." He looked past me toward the stairs. "What does that mean?" "It means the diner never put you on payroll. Dad said the room is part of the money." I know what he said. "If you change it, I could lose my benefits." "We don't know that." "He does." The next answers came just as quickly. Outside agencies could decide he needed a program. Paid work could cost him the studio. People who did not know him could change everything at once. The phrases sounded like Carl's. I did not know exactly what Carl had said or when. I only knew Noah had not been talking that way 2 days earlier. On Thursday, the office keypad rejected my code. Carl appeared behind me with his coffee. "You changed it. For now. I own half this business." "And you still do." "Then give me the code. Send me what you need. I'll pull it." He walked past me, keys tapping against his belt. He had not taken away my ownership. He had made every question pass through him. On Friday afternoon, Noah came downstairs in the same worn coat. I offered to drive him to the library. "The Route 11 bus comes in 13 minutes. He said. "You know that route?" "Yes." "Since when?" He pushed his hands into his pockets. "It goes to the library." Carl had spent years saying Noah could not manage buses alone. Yet Noah knew the route, the stop, and the exact time. That afternoon, I called Abilities in Motion. The earliest intake was the following Wednesday. Noah agreed to go after I told him it was a meeting, not a placement, and that he could leave whenever he wanted. Evelyn Park met us in a small conference room on March 11. She had a neat stack of forms and a folder divided by colored tabs. At first, she asked practical questions. Who controlled the benefit payment? Was there a written rental agreement? Had Noah ever received a wage statement? Noah answered the first two questions himself. When I started to add a detail about the studio, he turned his head toward me, and I stopped. Then Evelyn looked at me instead of him. He may need to be removed from that environment immediately. Noah's chair scraped against the floor. I did not ask to be removed. Evelyn turned toward him. I meant until we understand the risks. You already decided the risk. He stood, picked up his coat, and left. I found him near the elevators, pressing the down button even though it was already lit. I'm sorry, I said. You brought me here so she could make another plan. I thought she would help. She did not ask what I wanted. The next day, Evelyn sent him an email. Noah showed it to me without handing over his phone. I made a recommendation before asking what you wanted. That was wrong. On Friday, he agreed to meet her again. Without you in the room, he said. I nodded. No decisions at the meeting. I can stop it. Everything has to be written down. All right. He watched me for a moment. I'll stay out of the room, I said. Good. By the following Monday, Noah met Evelyn without me. I knew because he had written the time on a yellow card and left it beside his door. At 9:30, he came downstairs carrying a single sheet of paper folded into thirds. He placed it on the counter between us. These are the things I want answered. The list was written in his block printing. What kind of benefit do I get? What happens if I am paid? Can I have my own bank account? Can I keep the studio while I decide? Do I have to keep working at the diner? Can Dad stop being the person who gets the check? Did Evelyn write this? I asked. I chose the order. He told me she had put away the folder from their first meeting and given him a blank page. When she started explaining housing options, he reminded her that housing was fourth on his list, not first. She stopped and wrote the number beside it. I did not say I wanted to stop seeing Dad. He added, I said I want to know what he is allowed to decide. I returned the page along the folds he had already made. The next day, he told me what he had allowed Evelyn to share. He had taken 3 travel training sessions the previous year. He knew how to transfer buses, check a delayed route, and recover from a missed stop. The Route 11 schedule had not been a guess. He pulled a blue Barta card from his wallet and held it up for a second. There is more, he said. He had saved $586 in tips customers had handed directly to him. He had also checked studio rents near bus lines, though he had not applied anywhere. Are you planning to move? I am planning to know what it costs. On Wednesday, Noah went to the bank. I offered to drive him. He said the bus stopped 2 blocks away. I offered to wait outside. He said he had a list of the documents he needed. He returned that afternoon with a white envelope tucked under his arm. His shoes were wet from the walk between the bus stop and the bank. But he did not look flustered. He placed the envelope on the counter, checked that the flap was closed, and only then looked at me. Did it work? Yes. Do you want help setting anything up? No. He opened the envelope just enough to remove a receipt, checked it, and put it back. The account is only mine. I put in $100. He did not offer me the account number, the login, or a place on the form. Part of me had expected at least one of them. That evening, I suggested he could use our guest room if things became uncomfortable upstairs. You could stay as long as you needed. I'd give you a key. Would you have one too? It's my house, Noah. He looked at me without blinking. Then it would still be your door. On Thursday, a benefits counselor joined Noah and Evelyn by video. Noah let me sit in for the last 10 minutes. The counselor did not promise that paid work would leave everything unchanged. She said the effect depended on the exact benefit, the amount earned, and the reporting rules. She would need documents before giving a full answer. Then she said something Carl had never said clearly. A representative payee managed a social security payment. That did not make the payee a guardian, and it did not give the payee ownership of wages. Noah leaned toward the screen. If I earn money, whose account does it go into? Yours, unless you choose another arrangement. And Dad cannot take it because he is the payee? Not just because he is the payee. Noah wrote that sentence down. Evelyn started to explain the next steps, then stopped. Do you want the options now? Or do you want time to read what we have? Write the options. I will read them first. By Friday, the word lawyer had stopped sounding like a threat and started sounding like another source of information. The attorney's office was downtown. Noah allowed me to sit beside him, but the attorney looked at him first. Are you comfortable with Marlene staying? Yes. Then I need to be clear. You would be my client, not your father, not the diner, not Marlene. Noah nodded. She asked what he wanted. I want to know what work I did. I want to know what should have happened. I do not want anyone deciding where I live before I decide. The attorney asked whether he wanted to leave the diner. I do not know yet. Then she asked whether he had anything showing his hours or duties. Noah's fingers tightened around the edge of his chair. Yes. What kind of records? He looked at her, then at me. I have records. I have not decided who gets to see them yet. The following Monday, Noah carried a small metal cash box into the attorney's office and set it on the table between us. The attorney looked at him before she looked at the box. Do you want Marlene to stay? Yes. Do you want her to handle any of this? No. Noah took a key from his pocket and opened the box himself. Inside were 11 pocket planners. Their covers bent and softened from use. They were not neat legal records. The earliest ones had gaps lasting days. Some pages held grocery lists, bus times, weather notes, and reminders about which freezer shelf Luis wanted cleared. In the newer books, the entries were more regular. 5:14, open front. 5:27, coffee. 6:02, bread delivery. 11:46, upstairs. The attorney turned only the pages Noah placed before her. Did you start keeping these because you thought there might be a dispute? No, I keep times. That helps. The first years were thin. The last 3 planners were much more detailed. But even those had blank days and entries that needed context. Noah had written inventory without saying how long it took. He listed deliveries but not always when he finished. The attorney closed the most recent planner. This supports what you've told me. It may establish a pattern. But I can't promise we can recover 11 years of wages. Noah's shoulders rose slightly. How many years? Usually, the strongest legal window is much shorter. We may be looking at 2 years. Possibly 3, depending on the facts. Older records can still matter in negotiation. They just may not be recoverable the way you expect. Noah stared at the box. I worked all of them. I understand. No, you understand the years the law can count. The attorney let the silence sit, then explained that the wage issue and Carl's management of the Social Security payment were separate. Her office could evaluate the employment claim. The payee arrangement had to be reviewed through Social Security. Noah had already started that process. He showed us a confirmation page from the call he made himself. It said only that his request had been received. There was no decision or promised date. The attorney offered to scan selected pages. Noah asked whether the files would be stored under his name, who could open them, and whether he could later withdraw permission for copies not already required. She answered each question before he agreed. She wrote down which planners would be copied and confirmed the originals would leave with him. He watched every book return to the cash box before locking it. By Friday, Noah authorized the attorney to send a preservation letter. It asked the diner and Carl to retain payroll data, schedules, delivery records, business emails, bank statements, and communications about Noah's work. It was not a court order and did not force anyone to hand over everything that afternoon. A copy arrived in my business email. Carl read it at the front counter without moving for several seconds. Then he carried it into the office and shut the door. It stayed closed for nearly an hour. I heard drawers opening and the scrape of a file cabinet. But I did not know what he was looking for. And I did not knock. I began with files I could access without his office code. The shared scheduling folder showed Noah missing from most official schedules. Delivery sheets told a different story. His initials appeared beside bread, produce, and supply orders. Opening assignments listed tasks I had watched him perform even when the weekly schedule left his name blank. I found several deposits into the LLC account marked household support or family reimbursement. I could see the money arriving. I could not see the source account or what Carl had written in his own records. The dates bothered me, but they did not prove what the money was. When I asked Luis why Noah's name appeared on prep assignments but not the main schedule, he kept his eyes on the onions he was chopping. The kitchen list isn't payroll. That wasn't my question. He moved the onions into a steel pan. You should ask Carl. On Monday, March 30th, I searched the business email archive for Noah's name. The message from 2024 appeared halfway down the results. Our accountant had written that Noah's recurring operational duties did not look like occasional family assistance. She asked how he was classified and whether payroll treatment should be reviewed. Carl had replied that Noah helped by choice, received housing and support, and was not an employee. I had been copied. I remembered reading it at the front counter while the ice machine leaked and a vendor threatened to stop deliveries over an overdue balance. Carl told me he would handle the email. I let him. I closed the laptop and went upstairs. Noah opened the studio door but did not invite me in. I found an email from the accountant. She asked about your work 2 years ago. He waited. Carl answered her. I was copied. His hand stayed on the edge of the door. Did you read it? Yes. Did you ask him? My mouth went dry. No. I started to explain the vendor, the ice machine, and the way Carl handled payroll. Noah stepped back, reached for the metal cash box on the table, and pulled it closer to his side. You knew enough to ask. Then he closed the door. The next morning, I carried a paper bag upstairs out of habit. Inside was a turkey sandwich, an apple, and the kind of oatmeal cookie Noah liked when it was soft in the middle. I set the bag beside his door, knocked once, and went back downstairs. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Please ask before coming upstairs. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Then I typed, I will. The following morning, I texted before climbing the stairs. Noah answered no. I stayed downstairs. By Wednesday, his absence had become part of the diner's schedule. Customers asked where he was. Tessa opened the front twice that week. Luis checked deliveries between grill orders. And I stayed after closing to finish inventory Noah used to complete before lunch. We paid overtime to cover work Carl still called family help. One regular complained the coffee tasted different. Another asked whether Noah was on vacation. I said he was taking time away. Tessa rubbed the back of her neck while we reset tables. I'm not saying he shouldn't be paid, she said. I'm saying this place pays 12 people. Some of us need the insurance. I know. Do you? Her voice was quiet. Carl kept this place going when my husband was sick. He carried me for months. That doesn't make what happened to Noah right. No, but fixing one wrong can still hurt people who didn't cause it. On Thursday, I saw Noah at the Route 11 stop. Rain ran off the shoulders of the dark gray coat I recognized from his phone. He stood under the shelter with one hand inside the inner pocket. I crossed the parking lot but stopped several feet away. Did you choose that one? Yes. It looks dry. It is. He took out his Barta card, checked it, and returned it to the pocket. You bought it with the tip money? Yes. I almost told him I would have paid for it. The sentence reached my mouth and stayed there. The bus came. Noah stepped aboard without looking back to see whether I was watching. On Friday, I met with my own attorney. She asked me to bring the operating agreement, the accountant's email, and proof of my access to the business systems. Seeing my name beside 50% ownership made it harder to keep describing payroll as Carl's private department. She told me starting payroll now would not erase the years before it. Separating Noah's housing from his work might reduce some pressure, but it would not settle the wage issue. A repayment plan would require his agreement. A loan would not change who had made the decisions. What if I became his payee? I asked. That is not a decision you make. It would not resolve wages either. That weekend, I filled a yellow pad with possibilities. Payroll beginning Monday. A written lease separate from employment. Monthly repayment. A business loan. A different payee. Carl crossed out the repayment line. We can put him on payroll going forward, he said. That should be enough to show good faith. It doesn't answer the past. The past kept a roof over his head. You keep saying that like the roof belonged to him. Carl dropped the pen. You want me to admit we stole from our son so a lawyer can put a number on it? I want you to stop pretending a paycheck next week makes the last 11 years disappear. He pushed the pad back toward me. Then you are not looking for a solution. By Monday, Noah's attorney was ready to file a wage complaint. I asked Noah to meet me at Abilities in Motion. Evelyn sat at the end of the table, and his attorney joined by phone. I brought the yellow pad. I'm not asking you to lie, I said. I'm asking you to give me time. Noah looked at the date written at the top. How much? 3 days. What changes in 3 days? I might separate the studio from the job. I might get Carl to agree to payroll and repayment. Might? Yes. He folded his hands. No changes to records. No papers for me to sign. Evelyn or my lawyer is included in anything about me. Agreed. Thursday at 5. On Tuesday, Carl agreed to discuss payroll but not back pay. He would not put in writing that the studio was independent of Noah's work. On Wednesday, I asked Noah again about changing the payee. No. It would only be temporary. No. I would show you every statement. That still leaves you in control. He picked up his bus card from the table. I do not want Dad's control moved to you. By Thursday afternoon, my yellow pad was full of arrows, crossed out numbers, and proposals that required Noah to trust the same people who had kept him uninformed. At 4:30, I called him. I don't have it, I said. I know. At 5, his attorney filed the complaint. Noah checked the confirmation page twice and asked whether filing changed his studio agreement that night. His attorney said it did not. He folded the confirmation and kept it with the planner copy receipt. No inspectors came through the door. No account was frozen. Carl told Tessa before she left for the day. I found her near the service station with Noah, who had come downstairs for his mail. She touched his shoulder. If this place closes, people are going to know why, she said. I just need you to understand that. Noah looked at her hand, then stepped back until she was no longer touching him. The next morning, he came downstairs again between breakfast and lunch. One server stopped talking when he walked past. Another asked quietly whether it was true he had never received a pay stub. Noah said yes. She opened her mouth as if she had another question, then glanced toward Carl's office and carried a tub of silverware away. The dishwasher gave Noah a nod and returned to work. Tessa stayed behind the register, folding receipts into a stack that did not need folding. Louise saw Noah through the kitchen window and kept plating eggs. On Monday, I asked Louise to show me the kitchen records covered by the preservation letter. He wiped his hands on his apron and led me to a shelf beneath the dry storage inventory. The binders covered about 18 months. They listed opening prep, deliveries, stock checks, and names written beside each task. Noah's initials appeared again and again. The official schedules showed nothing. These are working lists, Louise said. They are not payroll. Why is Noah on these and missing from the schedules? Louise stared at the binder rings. Carl said the final schedule should show paid staff. Did you change them? I changed some of the summaries. Carl asked me to, and I said yes. The next afternoon, Noah asked Evelyn and me to meet him in a small room at Abilities in Motion. His attorney joined by speakerphone. Noah placed both hands flat on the table. There is something I did not put in the first statement. Years earlier, a 17-year-old cashier had been blamed for a shortage. Noah had seen Carl remove cash from the drawer before the count. Carl said it was for a vendor who would not wait until Monday. Later, when the drawer came up short, the cashier was blamed. "Did you tell anyone?" I asked. "No." "Why not?" "I thought if I said it, Dad would send me home." "She lost her job anyway." His attorney asked whether he wanted the incident included in the record. "Yes." The word came fast. "I do not want my complaint to make it look like I always spoke when something was wrong." He told us he had contacted the former cashier. He did not tell me what she said, only that she had not forgiven him. By the following Monday, a neutral accountant had begun a preliminary review. She did not give us a final number. She gave us a problem. The diner had revenue, but very little room. The line of credit was nearly full. Several vendors were carrying balances. And the refrigeration repair had been financed instead of paid. Payroll, legal costs, and any meaningful wage resolution could force an asset sale or closure. The accountant showed us 3 projections. None preserved the business exactly as it was. Some employees might keep their jobs under a buyer. Others might not. Tessa sat with her arms crossed. So Carl wasn't lying about that part. "The risk is real," the accountant said. "That does not settle who is responsible." That week, counsel showed us a limited set of records connected to Carl's management of Noah's benefits. Some payments were easy to understand: rent, utilities, groceries, and medical expenses. Others were not. Transfers marked family reimbursement landed in the LLC account days before a refrigeration repair, a vendor payment, and a large insurance bill. The dates did not prove every dollar had been misused. They did prove the diner and Noah's support money had not always been kept as separate as Carl claimed. When I asked Carl about it, he tapped the records with one finger. The diner kept his home available. Keeping the diner open helped him. That is not the same as using his money for the business. It is when the business pays for the roof over his head. By Thursday, Carl had changed his explanation again. He handed Tessa a typed statement and asked her to sign it. She brought it to me before lunch. The statement said Noah helped only when he wanted, had no fixed schedule, and took on extra tasks because the floor staff allowed it. It said Carl had never assigned him regular duties. Tessa's thumb had creased one corner. "He wants this to be my fault. He wants it to be nobody's decision. I haven't signed it." She folded the statement and returned it to her apron pocket. On Friday, Carl asked Noah, his attorney, and me to meet after closing. His proposal was 4 pages long. Noah would go on payroll at $12 an hour. He could return to his morning schedule and keep the studio. The complaint would be withdrawn. The past claim would end without an admission. And no more business records would be shared outside the process. Carl would stop managing the Social Security payment. For 1 second, I thought he had understood. Then I read the next line. I would become the payee. Carl leaned forward. This keeps the diner open. It keeps people working. Noah gets paid. He keeps his home. We stop tearing the family apart. Noah read every page twice. He did not ask whether $12 was fair or when he could return. He put his finger on the line with my name. Who controls the account? Carl looked at me. Marlene can help you with that. Noah turned toward me. He spent the weekend reviewing the offer with his attorney and Evelyn. He let me sit in for the last half hour. Evelyn drew 2 columns on a legal pad. One was labeled "What changes?" The other was labeled "What stays the same?" She did not fill them in for him. She read each clause aloud. And Noah told her where to place it. A paycheck went in the first column. So did a regular schedule and the right to remain in the studio. The second column filled more slowly. The past claim disappeared. Business records stopped moving outside the family. Housing stayed tied to the diner. And someone other than Noah still controlled his Social Security payment. Noah tapped the first column. I could go back Monday. Yes, his attorney said. Tessa would stop being afraid. Maybe. The diner could stay open. Maybe, she repeated. Evelyn slid the pad toward him. Which parts give you more control? Noah did not answer then. On Monday, he came downstairs before lunch and asked me to sit at the last booth. Would you agree to be the payee? I folded my hands under the table. At first, I thought I could do it better than Carl. I thought showing you every statement would make it different. Would it? No, not if you did not choose me. So your answer is no? My answer is I will not take that role because Carl put my name in a contract. Noah nodded once. That afternoon, his attorney sent the rejection. He would not trade his past wages, records, or control over his benefits for the right to keep working and living where he already worked and lived. Carl read it in the office, then came out holding the 4 pages. You turned down a job, a home, and a way to keep 12 people working. Noah turned it down, I said. Because everyone around him keeps telling him independence means burning down what supports him. He set the papers on the counter and walked away. On Wednesday, Tessa asked to meet Noah at his attorney's office. I attended because Noah allowed it. She brought the unsigned statement, printed text messages, and copies of schedules showing Noah assigned to opening tasks. Her fingers shook when she pushed them across the table. I knew you didn't get checks like we did, she said. Carl said the room and food counted. I let that be enough because I needed this job. Noah looked at the papers. I knew enough. You did not owe us your silence. He did not forgive her. He asked his attorney to inventory everything she had brought. Tessa nodded and left without asking what he planned to do with it. The next day, Luis delivered the original kitchen binders and working schedules. Before he left, he told me 2 former restaurant managers had asked whether the equipment and lease might be available if the liabilities were settled. That is not a buyer, he said. It is a question. On Friday, Carl's counsel sent me a statement to sign. It said Carl handled payroll alone. I did not know Noah worked fixed hours, and the floor staff had expanded his duties without our direction. I read it twice. Then I sent back the accountant's 2024 email. Payroll records, business correspondence, and LLC transaction reports I could lawfully provide. I wrote one sentence above the attachments. I will not sign a statement that makes my failure to act disappear. My attorney warned me that cooperation did not guarantee a sale. The diner could close. Employees could lose their jobs. My equity could be consumed by debt, legal costs, and escrow. What happens if nobody buys it? I asked. It may end. On May 7th, we met in a mediator's conference room. Carl sat across from Noah. His hands stayed flat on the table until he began talking. He said he had kept Noah housed after Elena died. He had fought schools and programs that underestimated him. The diner had given Noah routine, co-workers, and a place where he was needed. 12 employees now depended on that same place. Then he looked directly at Noah. If you were being exploited, why did you come back every morning? Noah's knee stopped moving beneath the table. Because you taught me that leaving work meant losing my home. Carl leaned back. The accountant reviewed the possibilities. Without an agreement, the diner might run out of room before the claim was resolved. An asset sale could preserve some jobs. But there was no committed buyer. Escrow would reduce what Carl and I could take from any sale. Noah's housing needed protection while the process continued. The mediator asked whether anyone objected to separating occupancy from employment during the transition. Carl's counsel asked for a shorter period. Noah's attorney asked for 6 months. They argued over dates while Noah followed the calendar on a printed page. The 90-day term was the first one both sides could accept without pretending the larger dispute had been solved. Carl turned to me. You are willing to end the diner over this? I looked at the records stacked between us. Then at Noah. Then the diner may have to end. Noah's life does not belong to a business just because we called that business family. By Friday afternoon, the mediator had reduced the temporary terms to writing. Noah could not be retaliated against or removed from the studio because of the complaint. His occupancy was protected for 90 days. Records would remain preserved. Carl would cooperate with the Social Security review. Neutral accounting would continue. Funds would be held in escrow. And the LLC would begin an asset sale process. The complaint stayed open. Carl signed first. I signed below him, knowing the sale could fail and my equity could disappear. Noah signed only the provisions requiring his consent. Outside, he folded his copy and placed it in the inside pocket of his gray raincoat. By the middle of May, the diner had become a place measured in lists. Equipment, vendor balances, lease conditions, records still under review. Luis and 2 former restaurant managers formed a buyer group. But nothing about it was quick. They inspected the kitchen, priced repairs, met with the landlord, and tried to secure financing without taking on every old liability attached to the LLC. The landlord wanted personal guarantees. The lender wanted updated sales figures. One manager withdrew, then returned after Luis found a smaller line of credit. Twice, I thought the sale was dead. The first time, the lender objected to the age of the exhaust system. The second, the landlord refused the proposed assignment language. Each time, the buyer group returned with another inspection, another revision, or another question. None of it felt like rescue. It felt like work. The accounting continued at the same pace. Noah's recent years could be reconstructed more reliably than the earliest ones. His older planners mattered in negotiation. But no one pretended every unpaid hour from 11 years could be returned. The settlement would come from escrow, available business funds, and whatever remained from the asset sale. My equity went first. Carl's did too. I signed documents showing that I was not an innocent owner. The accountant's email, my access to the records, and the years I benefited from Noah's work stayed in the settlement file. No one gave me credit for cooperating late. In June, Social Security notified Noah that a nonprofit organization would become his representative payee during the transition. Carl stopped contesting the change and turned over the records they requested. The organization managed only the benefit payment. Noah's wages and checking account remained his. The first statement listed rent, utilities, groceries, and the amount held for future needs. Noah called the organization about one grocery charge he did not recognize. It turned out to be a receipt submitted twice, and the second charge was removed. He read the corrected statement line by line before putting it in a folder marked benefits. By late July, the landlord approved a new lease for the buyer group. Luis called me after the signatures were complete. It closed, he said. Carl and I no longer owned the diner. The settlement papers were signed after the sale proceeds reached escrow. Noah did not receive 11 years of exact wages. He received a negotiated amount based mainly on the period the records could support, with the older years included in the settlement pressure rather than calculated hour by hour. The complaint was closed only after the money was secured and the required records delivered. The diner shut down for 10 days. The paper sign on the door said temporarily closed, with a reopening date printed beneath it. Several customers stopped to read it and then looked through the dark front windows. The new owners cleaned the kitchen, changed the payroll system, counted every piece of equipment, and replaced the handwritten scheduling process. Written duties were posted beside the time clock. No one could be added to a shift without appearing in the system. Not everyone came back. Tessa did. Luis stayed as part of the new ownership group. Noah did not return immediately. Before the 90-day housing protection expired, he signed a lease for a small studio 3 blocks from Route 11. The building was plain brick. The hallway smelled faintly of laundry soap, and the bedroom window faced a parking lot. The lock stuck unless the key was turned slowly. The lease had only his name on it. Noah showed me the page that listed the rent, security deposit, and notice period. He had highlighted the paragraph about entry by the landlord. He did not ask me to review it. He showed me because he had already signed. He asked me to help move 2 boxes, a lamp, and a narrow bookcase. At the door, he took out his own key and unlocked it. I lifted one box. "Do you want me to bring this inside?" He stood in the doorway. Not yet. I set the box against the wall and left. In August, Luis offered Noah a written job. 18 hours a week, $15 an hour, defined opening and inventory duties. Extra shifts only if Noah agreed. No housing connection. No Carl. No Marlene. Noah read the schedule twice before signing. He asked who could change his hours, whether delivery checks were included, and what happened if someone asked him to stay late. Luis wrote the answers into the job description. Schedule changes required notice. Delivery checks were paid duties. And extra time required Noah's agreement and a clock entry. Only then did Noah sign. His first pay period came to 17.75 hours because one shift ended early during reopening week. He showed me the pay stub at a table near the front window. He checked the hours first. 17.75. Then he looked at the deductions and net pay. His name appeared where an employee's name was supposed to appear. He folded the stub along the printed line and put it in the inside pocket of his gray raincoat. Tessa worked 2 sections that morning. She did not touch his shoulder or ask whether he forgave her. When she needed help with a takeout order, she asked whether he had time. No, Noah said. She handled it herself. A week later, Carl met us in the diner parking lot before opening. He carried a document envelope. Inside were Noah's birth certificate, social security card, benefit records, and the papers Carl had kept in the fire safe. He handed the envelope directly to Noah. I used your home and your routine to make decisions you should have made. Carl said, I kept telling myself that taking care of you gave me that right. It did not. I am sorry. Noah held the envelope against his chest. I heard you. Carl nodded. He did not ask for anything else. He walked back to his car and left before the diner opened. On September 14, Noah asked me to bring back a baking dish he had left at our house. I arrived at 6. He opened the apartment door with his key, took the dish from me, and stepped inside. I stayed in the hall. The door remained open, but I did not move. From inside, I heard a cabinet close and water run into a pot. He opened the door, went in first, and left me standing in the hall. A few minutes later, he came back and asked if I wanted coffee. This time, I waited until he invited me.